I'm staging an intervention, guys. And Carl, I'm staging an intervention.
I know.
Every single time, once every month or so, there will be a clip that circulates of this random based liberal, mostly Bill Maher, says something blindingly obvious to anyone who has been paying attention to politics for the past 10 years. And loads of conservative commenters point at it and go, OMG, so based, totally our guy. Not. He's not. Bill Maher is not your guy, and he's not your friend. He hates you. Oren McIntyre described it recently and put it brilliantly. He would not spit on you if you were on fire. He thinks you are an evil, decadent conservative and has nothing but contempt for your beliefs.
I think it might be I don't think he'll think you're decadent. I think he'll think you're uptight.
Well, yeah, uptight. That's probably a better way of putting it.
So I've been a fan of Bill Maher for decades, right? Because Bill Maher, you've got to understand that liberalism is kind of like a magic spell that gets cast over a person's mind. And so it erases aspects of reality and introduces things that aren't true to be the new reality. And so when someone who is a liberal says something that is actually true, that's always, in a way, kind of praiseworthy. That's always something noteworthy, at the very least. And it's not to say that he's our guy. No, he is a liberal. He is always going to be under the magic spell. But Bill Maher is better than your average liberal, in a kind of Yogi Bear way, because he is able to perceive through the veil of liberalism into things that are...
See, I think this is quibbling between very minor distinctions. It's like saying,
maybe,
would you rather...
I'm not saying it's not.
Would you rather be stabbed in the stomach or the kidney?
No. He's not that bad. And Bill Maher is always... I mean, he's got some strength.
Would you rather be blind or deaf?
I'd rather be deaf.
Hi folks, we've rolled out a new feature on the website, which is the ability to pay for an individual piece of content. So usually it's £5 a month every month to subscribe to all of the content on the website. But I appreciate there are going to be people who simply don't want to do that. They would be interested instead in purchasing a single piece of content for a lower amount, and they've got a particular niche that they're interested in watching. And so they don't want every single piece of content. They just want this one thing. So we've introduced this function where you can just simply purchase the one thing for £1.89, which I think is about $2.30 at the current exchange rates. And then that's just yours forever. So there's no sort of commitment there. There's no rolling subscription. It's just that one thing. So that's an option now that's on the website. It's completely live. It's completely available. And please go and enjoy it. And we'll see you all very soon.
Fair.
He has always been really hardcore on free speech. Right? He's always been really good on that. And he's always been really good against wokeism, even if he is a liberal and therefore has a bunch of other things that a conservative or a traditionalist would be like, no, that's terrible, right? Which is what I think you're about to launch. Well, but he's also been sympathetic to the underdog as well. Like he did a bit a couple of decades ago now, talking about the plight of men, being like, look, because and this was back when feminism was a big deal, and if you spoke out against feminism, you were a misogynist, right? And so it was actually kind of brave for Bill Maher to stand and go, look, actually millions of men are really leading lives of quiet desperation and actually suffering. And women do not understand this because they do hold quite a privileged place in society, right? And so, like I said, Bill Maher has his strengths and has been consistent on these, but you are right, he hasn't changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And despite having some good aspects, as I'm well aware you're about to tell me, he has some negatives as well. So that's
now that we've gotten over Carl's Cope speech, trying to explain desperately
Bill Maher is the best of the liberals, but he is still a liberal, an American liberal.
He's still a liberal, and overwhelmingly, he would hate your views if you were to explain actual conservative views. No, because I will get onto examples of this.
All I'm saying, Bill, call me, I'll come on your show, we'll have it out.
He is somebody... He might have you on his show.
He's not that
but bad. He would have you on his show to give you the Jon Stewart treatment, to misrepresent your views, insult you, denigrate you. He would laugh at you, and he would speak through both sides of his mouth so that you would be able to make sure that the audience know that you are someone worthy of being mocked and not taken seriously because you do not adhere to centrist 90s liberalism.
I'm not sure about that. Did you not see Milo on Bill Maher's show?
No, I didn't.
Right. Go and watch it. He's actually really complimentary towards Milo, right? He says he's like a modern day Christopher Hitchens. And it's like, okay, so honestly, I feel that you are making a kind of gestalt entity out of every left-wing late-night talk show host. And actually, Bill Maher is a separate thing. But you aren't wrong that at base, he is still a liberal. He's not Jon Stewart, and he's not, John Oliver or Stephen Colbert or all the rest. Right? He's not those. And that he is in a separate category. And I mean, he's been brutal against Islam, which obviously is.
Yeah, but he's been brutal against Islam because it's not liberal enough for it.
Well, yeah, of course, because he's a liberal, right?
Well, yes,
but he's not this kind of cruel liberal that will do what Jon Stewart does. He is honestly better than the rest of them. However, like I said, he is still a liberal, so please carry on.
Okay, but as you mentioned, the plight of men, I think it's relevant to point out that we had a book club recently on the website where we spoke about the plight of men, and we focused this around Nora Vinson's book, Self-Made Man, which was a really interesting experiment that she did, and may she rest in peace as well, because sadly last year she chose to go to Switzerland and voluntarily take her own life.
As I understand it, it was a consequence of living as a man for 18 months.
Partially, yes, because she suffered a psychotic break after she had conducted this experiment and had to put herself in an institute so that she could undergo psychotherapeutic evaluation and all sorts, because she was in a position where she might hurt herself, and sadly she ended up doing that.
The book is fascinating, just like she actually experiences life as a man, and it's like, oh my God, you guys have to live with this.
Yeah, she wasn't trying to become a transsexual or anything like that. She was very aware of her own identity being that of a woman, but it was an experiment because she thought to herself, because she was kind of feminist back when she started it, she thought, well, we always talk about how men have it so much easier, let me give that a test. It did not work out very well for her, and this was a very fascinating book club that I did with Connor and Dan. So that's premium on the website. So you can get a subscription to the website, £5 a month. And at the moment, we've got the birthday code for any subscribers. That's 33% off for 3 months. So if you feel like checking that out, give us a subscribe and give us some support. We'd really appreciate that. There you go, on the screen.
Discount code birthday.
Birthday, yeah. I should have brought some. Yeah,
we should have got poppers or something.
I was thinking as we started the podcast, I should have got the party poppers. Oh well. But so an example of what I'm talking about with Bill Maher in particular is this recent video came out where he's talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and loads of anti-woke liberal and conservative accounts have been taking this. It's like red meat whenever they go.
Yes, it is.
Bill Maher
Get him, Bill.
Bill Maher has posted a video. Therefore, excellent. Great. I can get a 10-minute clip out of this. I can get some nice clicks out of this one. And you always see it because he'll do something like this, because everybody knows Neil deGrasse Tyson isn't all there. He's a bit crazy. He
does keep informing me that the only part of your body you can lick in a mirror is your tongue. It's like, well, obviously, Neil.
What? Why would you?
Every year he seems to tweet this out.
Why would you say that? Also, if I was
the only part of your body you can lick in a mirror is your tongue.
Also,
obviously it's a reflection.
The only part. Why would you try and lick the mirror in the first place?
That's
window licking behavior, Neil.
He tweets it every year.
Also, the only part of my body I can poke in a mirror is my finger. I can only headbutt my own head in the mirror, Neil. Oh my God! What an incredible observation.
Mind blowing.
I did you know that if you see a mirror reflection, it's flipped the opposite? Oh my God. How did you tell? I didn't know that, Neil. Oh my God, I hate him. He's the Reddit scientist.
He is a Reddit scientist.
He is the Reddit scientist who provides all of these pointless little tidbits and trivia factoids that don't matter, nobody should care about, but people go, oh my God. But he's kind of low-hanging fruit. He's low-hanging fruit because basically he's the idiot's scientist and will come out with takes that are there for people who think they're smart. And it's very easy to dismantle them because he gets very emotional and he yells.
Or even if you don't need to necessarily dismantle them, it's just like, okay, that's not a very incisive observation about whatever you're talking about. So even if it might be true,
I think he does posts every year around Christmas time, so we're ramping up for it. Wait for it, where he's like, well, actually, if you look into the physics of it, Santa couldn't physically deliver presents to everybody. Who cares?
No, He's wrong on that. You're wrong on that. He's magic. Neil. Santa has magic.
Santa has magic on his side. Therefore, it makes perfect sense.
You ugly Santa denier.
Yeah, so
take it somewhere else, Neil.
You get Bill Maher attacking low-hanging fruit. And not even
no. So again, Bill Maher's not attacking low-hanging fruit. I mean, he's having him on as a guest.
He's having an interview, but then people like, I've never heard of this person before, Rattlesnake TV, but he managed to get 150 almost thousand views out of this. And it can basically be summed up in this 20-second clip that's at the beginning of it saying, coming up.
Eric Kaufman just barged in on us.
He had something to say.
I don't think he likes Neil deGrasse Tyson either.
Yeah. But let's play this because it sums up this is all. You don't need a 10-minute video. You need this 20-second clip.
You should be calling them out. Somebody like you who has standing with kids, it's demeaning and insulting, quite frankly, because it's reducing what I do.
Let's segregate society between
That's
dark-skinned
not
people and light
segregating.
It says boys and a separate doorway on the other side of school that says girls. I'm
Oh,
thinking,
God.
why are we doing this?
Because people are mostly boys and girls?
See, I think this supports.
Oh, this is highbrow content.
No,
right
I'm
here.
not saying it's highbrow content, obviously. I mean, Bill Maher's a comedian, right? But the point being.
You're saying you're annoyed that you didn't get a segment out of this.
In a way, yeah. No. There's no point. But the point is, Bill Maher is correct, and he is at least, like, again, he's speaking through the magic spell and saying, no, there are boys and girls. That's basically what everyone is. So that's why we do it. What are you being freakish for? And there's another clip, I don't know whether you've got it, where he's like, going around, he's saying to him, look, you should have been policing this nonsense in universities, and you weren't. And so that's totally true, totally reasonable, and the right thing to do. So this is why Bill Maher is, like, actually better than the average liberal. Now, I mean, personally, he's quite a decadent person. Obviously, he's got many other flaws. But he's not as bad as, like, the Jon Stewarts. Like, he's not, like, at least not that I've seen, like, wildly dishonest like Jon Stewart is. And he doesn't tend to belittle his guests as much as Jon Stewart.
All right, with all that, but if
I'm good. Bill Maher Defense Force.
What I'm confused about, though,
Yeah.
is with all of that you've just said, any well-meaning, switched-on conservative or right-winger will have been well aware of everything that you've just said.
They should be.
For at least the past 5 to 6 years, maybe much longer than that. Maybe even
He's been doing this since the 90s.
Maybe, well, I was going to say maybe even going back to the 90s,
Yeah.
and they have their own critiques of it that come from a much more logically and morally consistent worldview than Bill Maher, who I would say is mainly just trying to inculcate him in that comfy, cozy 90s sphere where everybody can get along and we can have our multicultural society without any problems, without any issues grinding up. We can have social engineering baked into the laws, but not so much that it makes me uncomfortable.
None of that was really Bill Maher's concern. Bill Maher, he obviously was in favor of multicultural society, but the effects of it hadn't manifested in the ways they are now, so it wasn't immediately obvious that things would turn out like they did. But also, Bill Maher, being a hardcore free speech absolutist, he was like, no, we're going to have it out. We're going to have the discussions. And it was assumed in the 90s there would be no irreconcilable differences because, of course, we didn't have any of the problems that we have now. Turns out there are lots of irreconcilable differences.
Once again, it seems to me that conservatives have this beaten spouse attitude. Some conservatives where they desperately want approval. They desperately want approval from people that they see as closer to the mainstream from them. This is why, as Oren McIntyre has spoken about, there is the ratchet effect that goes on, especially in the American right and the British right, where you'll have somebody who is an out-and-out progressive leftist like J.K. Rowling start saying sensible things about the latest insane thing that the left have started doing. J.K. Rowling doesn't change her views at all, but everybody on the right is so eager to be in with the cool kids because J.K. Rowling, oh my God, she's the Harry Potter girl. Everybody thinks that she's the cool kid, that they go, okay, well, we'll kowtow to some of your social beliefs because we want to be a bit closer to you and a bit closer to the mainstream. We want that glow from the mainstream. And so they'll go, okay, well, if it helps us get along, I'll give this over. I'll give this over to you. I'll give this over to you. And you constantly do that and you find that the right becomes more and more left wing. Over time, whereas these people stay in the exact same position.
Conversely, it's more difficult to win them over to your point of view if you're being uncharitable and unkind to them and you won't give them the time of day.
Yeah, but you don't need to win them over to your side.
Why not?
Well, because they're not particularly useful.
I think if J.K. Rowling came out and was like, you know what? Actually, now I think about it, Harry Potter's a really right-wing text, which it is, by the way. And actually...
But what would that do?
What do you mean, what would that do?
What practically
J.K. Rowling starts preaching traditionalism.
What practically would that achieve other than all of a sudden a load of leftists who already hate Harry Potter because they say that the creator is transphobic, going even harder on trying to censor it.
There are
Get
millions of
pulled out
people.
of Waterstones in a moment.
No, they can't cancel Harry Potter. That's the thing, because Harry Potter, I mean, even though J.K. Rowling is a raging transphobe, Harry Potter is too big an institution to just dismantle, right? There are I've had to go to Harry Potter worlds, and like, Disney has a Harry Potter section. They've got like Harry Potter shops and stuff like that. It's just too big to cancel. It's a genuine like generational phenomenon for the millennials. You're not a millennial, are you?
I'm kind of between 1996. So
I'm not
between the two.
I'm not a millennial either, right? So like, I don't think we understand that in the early 2000s, Harry Potter was like,
I very much understand.
But no, it's just too big. And so
I remember when the Deathly Hallows came out, all of the queues to every local bookshop overnight in midnight, from midnight onwards, the ridiculous queues,
So,
people camping.
I think that if J.K. Rowling came out tomorrow and was like, yeah, you know what, I'm actually really right wing, and this would be the right way to, and she basically sounded like Aaron McIntyre or something. She just came out with a bunch of Aaron McIntyre.
That would be a hell of a shift for her.
Yeah, but you'd be like, what would that do? I think that'd do a lot, actually. I think that millions and millions and millions of young people would be like, yeah, no, she's making a lot of sense. And I think the culture would shift in a certain direction that would be very favorable to right-wing politics. So actually, I think that we shouldn't underestimate, and we shouldn't necessarily just be mean to them, because it makes us sound kind of like spurned lovers or something.
Yeah. But that's never going to happen. You've painted a nice fantasy, but J.K. Rowling is not going to come out tomorrow and say, you know what, maybe we should deport them. That's nothing that she is ever going to say
I
or
don't
believe.
know.
It is a lost cause.
I don't know. I mean, like, she's a women's rights activist. How do we feel about this group of people that you're talking about?
These people can hold two contradictory views very easily in their own heads because they don't see them as contradictory. Mm-hmm. They see you as an evil racist for even suggesting that there are differences that maybe cause problems for the other primary issues that they hold tightly to. Maybe,
but a year ago, Graham Linehan, or 3 years ago, Graham Linehan would never have come on this podcast, but he's on tomorrow.
This is
so. Don't rule out anything.
This is true, but because you found one or two edge cases,
again, but that thing and that thing and that thing. Hey, man, like, we've got some tangible wins here.
Right?
It's exciting and easy to be a doomer, because that's a.
I'm not saying it's exciting. I don't like being a doomer. I don't think I'm being a doomer. I think I'm being realistic about it.
But realistically, Graham Linehan on tomorrow.
J.K. Rowling will never appear on this podcast.
You don't know that. You could have said that 2 years ago. Graham Linehan will never appear on your podcast. Like, you could have said that, and it would have been like, yeah, well, obviously. And yet here we are. So never rule out. She's a big fan of Posey Parker. Posey Parker's been on this podcast, so don't rule out anything. Okay. This is the thing. I'm anyway. Sorry, I didn't.
All right.
Detract us there, but I'm holding my ground on this one. Actually, we should be kind to those people who are leaving the spell of liberalism, because actually
they're not leaving the spell of liberalism. Liberalism has left them behind. Progressive leftism has left them behind.
I agree. But this was all packaged into liberalism, and I don't think they realized that. And actually, if we can give a convincing narrative of how something different should be, a sort of like, well, wouldn't you like to have a nice sort of more romantic, literally Harry Potter view, where people belong in a structure, in a system, and it works for them? Actually, I think that could be quite persuasive.
They thought they were living in that world.
Yeah, and it turns out they're not. So we can provide the alternative.
But they see that world as just being, well, we took a few steps in the wrong direction. We just need to roll back those steps, and then we're back in the perfect utopia.
But I think that's quite easy to dispel. I think that we can be like, well, how are you going to do that? And they're like, I don't know. But what the journey needs to continue. We can't go back. And I think that's a fairly self-evident point, that if you had a reasonable conversation with them, they'd have like, okay, maybe. Anyway, sorry.
Maybe.
I know I tangented this.
Okay.
I just think you're being too hardline. This feels very like Twitter online right.
I'm not. You always use that. You always
kind of is, though.
The analysis is correct. Right.
Yeah, but I don't think the analysis is correct.
What views of J.K. Rowling's have changed?
I don't know J.K. Rowling personally, right? But I mean, the fact that she's willing to ground her analysis in biological reality is a great start and a great.
That was never in question for her, though.
It kind of was.
There was never a moment where she was happy with biological men invading women's spaces. And she, even now, if you go back and read in 2020, the statement that she put out, she said that she is more than happy to respect people's pronouns and all of that, same positions as she ever was, It's just that when it starts to encroach into something that she cares about, that being the safety of women having their own spaces, that's where she draws the line. And I'm glad that she decided to draw that line.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that she's going to be calling for mass deportation anytime.
All I'm saying, I didn't say it'd be soon. All I'm saying is,
I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, but there are lots of things that are happening that I didn't think are ever going to happen. So, anyway.
All right. Anyway,
anyway, the hate march against Bill Maher will continue.
I try and stage an intervention, and you're just there like, no, I need it. I desperately need it.
I don't watch Bill Maher anymore, right? But I just don't feel you're being actually. I don't think you're actually characterizing him accurately.
No, I'm not being romantic enough about it. Clearly,
or even charitable, or like inaccurate. But like, because I mean, like, if this was Jon Stewart, I would totally agree on all of these points, but I think you're trying.
And if I'd been saying all of this 3 years ago, you'd be like, "No, Jon Stewart. There's a chance. There's a chance with Jon Stewart."
I don't think I would. I think I've been very disappointed with Jon Stewart for a very long time. But Bill Maher is not nearly as bad as Jon Stewart ever was. But anyway, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right.
But
Jon Stewart used to care about free speech, man.
No, Jon Stewart doesn't give a damn about it. And he never has. But you are right. At the end of this, though, that Bill Maher is not perfect and he's not our guy.
Bill Maher isn't our guy. He's a guy that people go to every so often so they can draw some internet clicks. It is very
cynical.
It is very cynical. It is very cynical. What these people are doing is cynical, and I need to call it out, okay? Like once again, Dave Rubin, who I know that you're friends with, I'm not saying anything against his own personal character, but he's doing it because everybody does it because it's the trend where you go, Bill Maher has said something right.
Yes.
Congratulations. My gran says things that are right every so often. You don't see me making YouTube videos about
it. Why not? My nan destroys the left. I'd watch that.
with facts and logic.
Yeah, I'd absolutely watch that.
Bit late for that now. She's dead. Anyway.
That's a shame.
Yeah,
Jesus.
It is a shame.
Good dog.
Yeah. So you've got all of this. Well, this is Academic Age and his recent videos where he's doing Talking Turley, because Steve Turley, who I'd never heard of before, is the measuring stick for the online conservative YouTube trend chasers. He seems like a nice guy.
The Boomercons.
Yeah, the
Steve Turley is a Boomercon.
And he says something absolutely hilarious in this video as well, where he says that you're absolutely right, Bill Maher. Who's been most affected by cancel culture? That's right, the comedians. And they have been affected, but I wouldn't say the worst. But a lot of them have made a lot of money, off of being anti-woke comedians.
But I always kind of hate this approach as well, because it's like, well, people, realize things that they personally perceive. So obviously, a comedian's like, wow, a lot of comedians are getting cancelled. But an academic's like, wow, a lot of academics getting cancelled. And so I can't, it's not really like a junk to say, well, you didn't notice this thing that you don't pay attention to happening. It's like, well, how would they?
Well, no, it's funny that it's coming from Steve Turley, who is a conservative, who is a conservative activist,
okay,
who didn't point to all of the cases of normal people saying normal things. He didn't say people like James Damore, normal guys with views that are slightly outside of the Overton window.
James Damore might have been a bit before Steve Turley's time, to be honest.
James Damore was only 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think Steve Turley.
Yeah, but if you're talking about who's been affected by cancel culture as a whole phenomenon, you can't say it's been most comedians most affected.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. But from the sort of Bill Maher perspective, if that's what he pays attention to.
Well, Bill Maher obviously is paying attention to the fact that some comedians have been affected by it. But people like Turley who say that I'm a conservative guy, I care about right-wing politics.
Yeah.
Can you really say that any comedian has been more persecuted over things than, say, Donald Trump has, who I believe is currently in a court case
there are like moment. 96 charges against him or something. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I'm not saying that.
But this is where I come to the most recent thing that I've seen going online. So a few months ago, it was about 3 months ago at this point, Bill Maher did a interview with Sharon Osbourne, the wife of Ozzy Osbourne, not a particularly pleasant person.
Yeah, I don't like her.
I suppose you would have to be as drugged up as Ozzy was to get married to a woman like Sharon Osbourne.
Yeah, she's just got a very grating personality to me.
Yes.
There's a certain kind of British woman that has a very common sort of personality type. In Britain, and Sharon Osbourne seems to have it. I don't like it.
And from this video, there was this clip that was going around. And as you can see, there's the description here where he says, he calls London going from 86% white to 36% white in mere decades a happy fact that if the English don't like it, they can move. And then he adds, yeah, well, they have. They've moved out of London. And he says, that's life on Earth. Things changed. And that's a description of what was said. But I don't think you can really capture the smug, self-righteous, and haughty attitude with which this topic is being discussed without watching the clip. And so let's just go to the beginning and we can listen to this.
But in 1984, I remember walking around London like it was all white. It was all white.
But you go outside of London now. But now it's totally changed.
It went from, I read this in Andrew Sullivan's column, it went from, in 50 years, it went from 86% white to 36% white. Now, this is not a complaint. See, if we were conservatives, this would be like a lament. Great.
It's a fact.
It's a fact, and it's a happy fact.
And if you can't discuss it.
Just don't tell me we're living in a year we're not living in. We're living in the year when London is mostly people of color.
Yes, it is.
And I'm applauding it.
Yep.
Happy for you. Happy for it.
Okay.
But let's live in the year we're living in.
You go to Windsor Castle, okay? And the town, of course, is called Windsor. And it used to be, when I was a kid, all English tea shops with china, and everybody used to go there for afternoon tea. And you'd go to Windsor Park and watch some polo. And now you go around there, there's no more fucking tea shops.
Right.
None of that.
Right.
It's Arabic restaurants.
Right.
It's Jamaican restaurants. Right. It's Chinese. It is a complete and utter melting pot. And it's great.
And it's great.
It's great.
And there's always going to be some people, and we can't hate them for it, who remember the tea shop, and that's their memories of their youth and where they first fell in love or whatever. And so they're going to be nostalgic for it. Mm-hmm. And that you can't hate them because they're like, I don't recognize my country anymore. Because in the Brexit vote, there was a lot of that. People said that. People who lived in England their whole life. And the old village green England's like...
The traditional things have gone.
Right.
But we still have the royal family that is way too traditional. Right. It's way too... I love them, but they're way too traditional. It needs to cut back on the shit.
My message to those people is always, sorry, but that's life on Earth. Things change.
Nothing stays the same.
Nothing stays the same.
If you stay the same, you're left behind.
Now, you don't have to like the change, but you can't just stand there in the middle of the street and go, stop, I am standing athwart change. It just doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. Change is going to come and it's going to roll over you. It's how you deal with it.
That's right.
You can move. You'll have to, maybe, it's sad. Maybe it would be a better choice to try to adapt to what's new.
Oh my God. I hate everything about that.
So have you changed any of your views?
No, because you can still see underlying this. Bill Maher is not attacking, and he is in fact actively in defense of these people, right? He's
not. Just because of the fact that he said, "Oh, you can't hate them for it," doesn't mean that I can't detect the smug condescension coming from that. This idea that change is just some implacable force that happens, and you're not allowed to be unhappy about it.
Hang on a second. Right. So change is an implacable force, right? The only constant in the universe is genuinely that it changes. But the way in which it changes...
Well, he's still a liberal progressive at heart, and he still believes that change will only ever go in the direction of multiculturalism and globalization.
I know. He believes in the Whig view of history that change means demographic displacement of native peoples in the West. He is that guy, right? He is on that guy. But he also has this side where he is... I didn't detect smugness from that at all. I
don't know. I got some from Sharon Osbourne.
Oh yeah, loads from Sharon Osbourne. But like I said,
and I got some.
I already don't like her. Right?
If you just say, "Oh, that's life, that's change," but why did it have to happen? Who's behind?
You're right. It's lazy, and it's because of his status in society. He's rich. He's famous. He doesn't need to. He can go wherever he wants, and he can have wherever.
I mean, he'll be living in a gated community.
Exactly in LA, so it's not his problem, right? But he's not being totally unsympathetic to those people. He's just saying, look, it was just inevitable. And to be honest, in a way, it kind of is inevitable if we're going to have a liberal world order that this happens, right? In the way.
So if we have the world order that he supports, then I don't get my country.
Yeah.
Young girls get raped by gangs of foreigners.
Yeah.
And he's there going, oh, well, you can't say stop change.
Because to him, liberalism is a spell. It's a magic spell that,
but you told me that sometimes he dispels this magic spell.
No. Sometimes he sees through it.
Sometimes he sees through it. So when it comes to incredibly basic biological facts about the differences between men and women, he's perfectly sensible. But when it comes to everything else that matters to me, my traditions, my culture, my
even
people,
then he saw that as well. He said, look, this causes nostalgia for people. The tea shops were actually valuable.
It's just nostalgia. It's nothing more.
Sure. But the point is, he recognizes there is something human in there that has been lost. It's just that he is what he is. And he's, must be like 65 or something.
He's 67, I think.
There we go. Yeah.
Getting to 70 years old.
Like there's no changing him. As far as he's concerned, this is the inevitable path of history, right? He's not going to change his mind, but he's not as bad as, say, Sharon Osbourne sat there, right? Who was actually proud.
Who was saying that the royal family need to change?
Yeah.
Even more.
And the fact that it was good that the tea shops were gone. I mean, I don't think Bill Maher thinks it was good that the tea shops gone.
No, he said that's great. He responded and said, that's great.
Yeah. This is a sort of, this is what progressives say. Everything that progression has done is good. But if the tea shops were there, I think he would find them novel and interesting and exciting, right? And he understands that there can be a lament for the tea shops. He understands why the Conservative would be lamenting that.
But that's the thing, because he's not banging a nationalist drum for us. He's not defending
of course.
our right to self-determination or sovereignty. But you are allowed to bang one sovereign nationalist
of course, he is Jewish.
drum at the moment. Yeah, which is that he's, more than happy to go on vehement rants about how evil you are to be anti-Israel. And obviously there is an argument to be made there. But my response to him in this situation would be, well,
I'm English, therefore I'm going to bang my nationalist drum for London.
That's changed, bro. Oh, who cares if the demographics of Israel change? That's life. You can't stand the IDF can't stand in the road of change and still hold up a sign saying stop.
And I would love to see what his response to that would be, because he's not irrational. He's not like just a bigot or something. So I would like...
And he's still got major TDS as well.
Well, yeah, of course he does.
Let's not forget that.
Yeah, but of course he does.
And he's still saying, oh, this is just as bad as white nationalism, etc., etc.
Of course he is.
But the other thing as well, what I want to say is that he hates traditional conservative views. He thinks that it's backwards. He thinks that it's ignorant and disgusting. For instance, here's an example that I just got today where Mike Johnson, Mike Johnson, the new speaker of the House of Representatives, he said on his most recent show on Friday night, he railed against Johnson's devout Christian faith as a red flag, but went further by suggesting that the Republican leader is mentally ill. Here's what he said. He said, when you're this much of a religious fanatic, there's no room for real democracy.
He's a new atheist.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But it's still telling, isn't it?
Oh, because no.
He says, that's not what you believe in. He said today, look in the Bible, that's my worldview, Maher said during the panel discussion. And I was reading about this horrible shooting in Maine, and we don't know much about the guy yet, but apparently he heard voices, and I thought, is he that different from Mike Johnson? I mean, to a degree, yes, but it's thinner than you think. So if you are religious, if you hold traditional views, Maher is still the kind of liberal who will equate you to a schizophrenic hearing voices in your head who's going to shoot up. He considers you a danger. He considers you his enemy.
Yeah, I mean...
So you shouldn't consider him your friend, is what I'm saying.
And you're not wrong.
Okay, so intervention, not as successful as I was hoping. Maybe for some of you watching.
Well, you are right that at bottom, Bill Maher will end up just capitulating and agreeing with everything that the most radical progressives really end up doing, but he's not the evil Jon Stewart type.
If he was given a choice between the world that you want and the world the progressives want,
he'll end up choosing that.
He would choose.
I mean, it depends how radically it's framed, I suppose. Like, I think he is kind of on the fence because he can perceive reality in spite of being a liberal. So it would be difficult, but he's not as bad as many of the others. But you are right. At bottom, ultimately, he's not the friend of conservatives.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site. such as the book clubs, this one on Nora Vincent's Self-Made Man. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at LotusEaters_com on Twitter. Thank you, and goodbye.